Perfect. So awesome. I can see now people are really they have become very serious about this cloud journey and all. Uh, their focus is cloud these days. Um, so before we get into this production use case, the topic, some of the things very important, guys, and be mindful about this. So what is the intention of these sessions, right? So the name is self-explanatory, like you can see production use case. That means we are going to discuss something related to cloud agnostic this time. So why cloud agnostic? That means the entire focus will be on cloud, but not specific to AWS or Azure. Okay. Maybe you are coming from the different background. Maybe you are, AWS only, or Azure only, but that's absolutely fine. But what I personally feel, or I observe, in during the interview sessions, or when I talk to people, the main objective of the cloud is almost same, irrespective of AWS and Azure, right? So let's say migrations approach, or let's say the performance, let's say scalability, high availability, all of the other nitty-gritty of the cloud, right? It will remain same irrespective of AWS and Azure. There's no such differences. But what we need to know that, some of the very important topics and use cases that you can fit across all of the clouds. Probably you understand that, I'm coming from where, and that is the intentions of this. Maybe you only know Azure, so whatever we discussed today, you can just, you will just take the grips of that particular topic, and then you can fit it to your Azure or AWS. That's the whole intention of this center session. So this particular session today is going to be 1.5 hours, maybe 1 hour or 15 minutes, maybe, and then it would be a subsequent more 3 sessions. So that would be total 4 sessions we are going to discuss. And again, I would request to everybody that you are spending your time, today's weekend, and you are showing up because of you have the interest, right? And this is very important. Okay, I don't know who is sign out for that. So still you can hear me, right? But anyways, this is very important that you are spending time, I'm spending time. So make use of it, the inter sessions, which is very important. And let's get started. So I just need a quick confirmations either from you, like, you hear me okay, perfectly fine, right? You can see my screen, and you can see, hear me. Anybody can, maybe Prem, you can just confirm.
Yeah, I can hear and I can see your desktop. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, Prem. Thanks. All right, so let's get started. What we'll do that, let's start with some kind. So let's start playing a game. Let's say I'm the customer, you guys are the cloud guy. Maybe you are the cloud engineer, you are maybe from cloud consultant background, or maybe architect, whatever. You can just fit yourself into a different role. So the first use case that we are going to discuss about the migration. You all know the migration is super important these days, right? People, during the interview process, even if you are working with cloud technologies, the migrations is really, really important. That is something people are going to adopt cloud, So if I'm the customer, I have got a problem, and you will get a 30 seconds time to think after each and every use case, and anybody can, or maybe 2, 3, 4 people, you may volunteer to answer those particular query. Okay, please feel free. We are here to learn something. So if you feel that I cannot talk, it's absolutely fine, but don't do that. Just try to get involved in the entire discussion. Then ultimately you will get benefited out of it, right? The whole process of this 4-day sessions. Let's say I'm the customer, and I have got a very complex applications, right? And this application is being developed by my team. Okay, let's say I'm the customer, and now I feel the cloud is good for future need, from the scalability perspective, from whatever the good sweet spot of the cloud that we usually heard about. And I want to do a migration on AWS or Azure. As I said, it's generic. What do you think that how can you start this migration approach? And what are the questions you may ask? And what are the tools you are going to use? And what would be the complete migrations journey you have to adapt? Right? It's a very common discussion. This is how can you start with the migrations? So probably you heard me correctly, right? And you will get 30 seconds time to think of, and maybe you can also be part of the discussions. If I can see people still coming on, that's fine. So I would like to repeat once again my question because somebody just joined now. So I'm the customer. I would like to migrate custom developed applications. So these applications are running maybe on-premise right now. And I would like to migrate my entire application stack on AWS or Azure or Google, right? How can I start that? What are the tools you are going to use? How do you start these migrations? Maybe you're the cloud engineer, or you may be the cloud consultant or architect. Okay, nobody, right? I mean, you may just discuss. Okay. So, so for any migration journey, first you need to go ahead with some of the predefined, prerequisites sort of questions. Pushpender, you're going to say something?
Omana.
Guys, please mute yourself, whoever is not talking. Thank you.
Dada,
yeah.
For the migration purpose, I think we can start the how many the servers, as this is the application, and we need to know from the customer what amount of traffic is coming to that application. We need to understand the how much traffic comes to the application, and how they are expecting the in future what amount of the traffic it will comes on that application. And for the assessment, because it is application based on the server, we can assess their traffic strategy. And for the migration, we can use the application migration tool for the AWS, because it is an application, so we can go with the application and we can replicate that application on AWS, and then we can decide the date of the cutoff. Then we can move on to the cloud.
Right. I appreciate. You are absolutely right.
Hi, Devajit. This is Amar here.
Yeah.
Good evening, all. So in my opinion, to start with, we should first ask what is the current architecture and how the current application is working, and what are the different blocks are currently involved in current application architecture. And then we should maybe this is the first thing, I guess, come in mind, that how the current architecture, how the current database looks like, what are the basically different parts of the database that is being accessed by application, and then how the application is being I would say not evaluated, but when the application does run, what kind of response it gives means.
Okay.
So those are the basic questions first comes in my mind to start with.
Absolutely spot on. Fantastic. Yes, both you are right, actually. Amar and Pushpender, right? So let me refresh whatever you have just mentioned. So absolutely. So before you get into any migration, first we need to understand their current applications or current infrastructure or workload, right? Let's put it this way. So you should ask your customer that, okay, tell me, you have developed this kind of application. So just try to get into as much as possible, right, guys? Just asking questions is not a problem. Just asking, this application is developed by whom? They said, okay, we developed, right? They are applications team. That's perfectly fine. Then maybe we can also should know that what sort of application is this? Is this a kind of .NET application, PHP application, Java application? Then probably they will answer, yeah, it's this Java application, perfectly fine. But what sort of Java application is this? Is this based on Java 8, Java 11? That means the versions, application version, right? So let me just add point, just try to add, here. So current applications, then you just try to ask, okay, then the application detail, okay, as much as possible. As I said, the version, right? Is there any dependency of the applications, right? The applications, let's say the application is very custom applications, very complicated applications, right? Is there any dependency on the application? Because this application, are they using some different services, some third-party integrations? Okay, third-party integrations, my bad. Third-party, still spelling wrong. Okay, sorry for that. Quickly, integrations third. So these third-party integrations, or is there any other microservices? So those nitty-gritty you need to know first, right? The detail. Then definitely you can go back to you can touch upon the database part, right? Now, what sort of database they are using? Are they using some kind of OLTP databases? Of course, yes. Then it is a MySQL or PostgreSQL or MS SQL, right? Or it is a what sort of version of the database it is, right? Versioning. So this is something you should start the discussion with, right? Then people will feel, okay, you are on the right track. Because if you don't know their basic details, then how can you start the migrations, right? So migration is not that easy, right? Migration is the topic which is most important and most critical, right? It is always complicated. So if you know all of the details as much as possible, then it will be very easy for the next process that I'll tell you, the migration strategy or migration tool, right? So now let's say you have got all of the answer. Let's say your customer say, yes, we have developed our applications, Java application, which is running on Java 11 latest framework. Or yes, there are third-party integrations. So this Java, the entire application is communicating to some bank integrations, a bank payment system, or maybe some other integrations. Then maybe they also answer, yes, these particular applications, they have a different modules, right? Different, maybe they are using their own different services. Application are using a lot of services, right? Maybe web services, maybe some of the other services they are using for. Now, if I'll come to the database part, then probably they are using MS SQL. They are using 2012 version or 2019 version. Yes, they are using OLTP. They are having. So these are all sort of very basic understanding you should have. You understand? Then somebody rightly mentioned that you need to understand then their current ecosystem or current infrastructure details, right? Let's say something like that, their current infrastructure, current server sizing. Let's say they have current servers, how many servers they have, and their server sizing, maybe the server sizing or infrastructure sizing. What is the server sizing, or what is the infrastructure sizing, right? It consists of how big the server they are using, right? Let's say how many CPU they have, how many RAM they have, right? How many storage, not TAM, how many storage they have, right? So all of the details you need to know. Okay, you should ask your customer, okay, I need those details. Okay, how many servers you have, or how much resources you have, right? Somebody can tell me, why do you need this server sizing? I mean, why do you need this, all of the infrastructure sizing details? Anybody can quickly answer.
To provide the cloud infrastructure, right? Like so we similarly need to build the EC2 or relevant storage, database, everything.
Absolutely, yes. So that's definitely right answer. So Bhaskar, I can see you.
Yeah, I want to say the same thing. Actually, this thing will help in our assessment part. Means first is the discovery part, in which we will ask about the application and database, those things, and the server side of the client side. And then when we do the assessment for the cloud side, then CPU, RAM, and storage, these part will come in the picture.
Yes. So one very important thing. Yes, thank you so much, both Bhaskar and who answer Prem, right? Or Prakash, just forgot whoever, Prem, yeah. So the sizing is very important because any cloud, maybe AWS or Azure, if you don't assess the right sizing, then your cost might be double or more than whatever you are spending for in on-premise infrastructure, right? So this is something concept called assessment of your current infrastructure. There are many tools. In Azure, they have their own discovery tool. In AWS, they have their own discovery and assessment tool. So these are the tools you may use to assess their existing infrastructure consumptions. Let's say they are having 200 servers maybe for this application, or maybe they have, let's say, 100 servers, okay, for the entire applications they are running for on-premise. But maybe they are using only the 20% of total capacity. You understand? Let's say they are having 100 servers, because for each and every servers, maybe they are only consuming 20% of CPU and maybe 30% of RAM. So other additional resources they are wasting, right? So whenever you would like to migrate the same thing, then this assessment tool that I'm talking about, right, both Azure, AWS, or maybe Google also, they have their own assessment and discovery tool. Then you will understand that, okay, that's their current capacity and that's their current consumptions. So when you migrate that, but whenever you migrate over to AWS or Azure, then you'll already know that, okay, you really don't need that much of capacity of those servers. You can reduce the footprint. And that is something called very, very important in any migrations journey, that the right sizing is very, very important. So somebody just pinged me directly, Wakas. Oh yes, Wakas, I think he cannot join, but yes, we are recording the entire sessions. So this is important, the sizing. And then, so now this is something right? Whatever they have. But tell me again, is it enough to have all of the information that already we have received from customer? Or how can you start the migration? Let's say you have got all of the information, right? This application, database, server sizing. But what would be your approach for the migrations now? Can you just do migration right now after this call, or maybe overnight? If yes, then say yes. Why? What is the reason behind that? If it's no, then you should tell me why it is not.
The first thing we should do is their cloud readiness assessment. Are they really ready to go on the cloud, like that CERT tool we are having, the cloud adoption readiness tool? So first we need to do those kind of assessments. Right?
Yes.
And once those things pass through, then only we will go to the next phase, the discovery phase. Maybe they are having, let's say, for one application, they are running with 16 CPUs. But actually that application utilization never goes beyond 40%. Let's say in 1 month and 2 months. And in those cases, we need to scale down their server side. So that's fine that they are giving their specification to us, but we need to completely do the assessment before actually go to the next phase. And we need to see that how much capacity they are having and how much they are utilizing. And maybe somewhere we need to upgrade and somewhere we need to downgrade. So those kind of assessment needed before we will take the decision on migration.
No, you are right, Danis, but that point already covered. You are right, because we already mentioned that yes, the right sizing and the discovery assessment tool we need for this right sizing. But my question is, once you are done with this sizing informations, all of this migration assessment tool you just talked about, So after this, can we start immediately, or what will be the approach of this these migrations?
So
that was the question.
So approach should be like that. That first we need to do a POC. We can't do the migration right away. We need to just ask the customer what are their critical and non-critical workload, or maybe some dev stuff. So we need to start with the non-critical things first. When we done with the POC only and the customer is satisfied, then only we'll go to the next step.
Yes, this is something I wanted to hear from you guys. Like, you need to identify which are the workloads you can start for the migration to begin with. Very, very important. You cannot simply touch their production environment after this call, right? If you know all of the informations though. So first you need to ask, do you have any development and staging environment? Of course they have. If they are running 200 sort of servers for this huge application, definitely they have this development and staging environment running, right? So these informations you should know, like, if you know the dev and staging they are using, then you can start your testing or all of your experiment or POC, or whatever you are just talking about. POC is proof of concept. So you can start with their development, and then there's a different migration approach we'll discuss also today, that what are the migration approach. But that is something that you can start with the less critical workload for the migrations. Don't touch the productions right away, right? So when so let me again write it down there. So dev or staging environment, which is less critical workload, right? So less critical workload you should start with. Something like that. I mean, I have got a lot of this architecture diagram we'll discuss in the same, subsequent lectures, maybe today or next 3 days of this discussion. But now you can see it is very, very complex, and it's related to AWS. Bear with me. So as I said, that this entire session is not typically for AWS. It is AWS and Azure or GCP mix and match. But I have got this ready-made, this architecture developed by AWS. So you can see there are a lot of icons around, right? There are servers, there are a lot of services. There on my left, there are some of the networking components. So as you rightly said that once you are done the POC, then we can deploy the entire application, their existing application on the cloud. So we'll discuss this architecture later on, and we'll discuss each and every component, what exactly it does mean, but not now. It's a high level. So once customer is ready, okay, I'm okay for the dev and staging migration as of now, then your migration approach will come. Now, next question. How many of you know what sort of the migrations approach for a smooth migration from on-prem to AWS or Azure, from different CSP to AWS or Azure, or something like that? So what would be the common migration approach you should go ahead with this? I mean, you should follow for any migrations. Okay, silence. Probably but you cannot recall. Maybe
lift and shift. Lift and shift.
Absolutely fantastic. Thank you, Pushpendra. Lift and shift. Okay. Anything more about that? Anything else? All right. Yeah, I think that's a very quick answer. Lift and shift is the most easiest way of doing the migrations. Somebody called rehosting also, right? So rehosting or lift and shift, the same thing. So what is that, Pushpendra? What is the lift and shift? Can you please explain for next few seconds?
Basically, we will create a new environment on that and directly migrate all the application on that cloud.
Okay.
And once all the testing has been done, we can do the cutover.
Okay. Okay. Anything? Yes.
That for lift and shift, we will not change anything. Suppose the application part or database part, the similar one will be shifted to the cloud environment.
Absolutely, Bhaskar. That's very important and interesting, answer. So both you are right. So lift and shift, that's the easiest way to start the migration, and it is a similar in the sense whatever you have currently running on your infrastructure, the same thing will have on cloud. That means if I'm the customer, I just use this application, like, as I said, Java 11, whatever the version I'm using, whatever the database I'm using, right? Whatever the operating system I'm using. So everything will remain same even in the cloud. So there's a no change. The similar is very important term. Identical is very important term. So this is not a, first of all, this is not a cloud class. I mean, this is not a AWS or Azure architect or SysOps or DevOps class. This is a real estate. So I assume that you already know some of the topics, some of the things, right? What are these? If you don't know, please check with your instructor to have some more knowledge that, what is this? That's a little disclaimer from my side. So yeah, so lift and shift, it's a kind of similar infrastructure application you have, and the same thing you will just rehost, just lift from here and shift to their particular cloud, right? So there's no changes anywhere during this migration. And this is the easiest way, okay? So something like that. Let's say if I have this, let's say it's my on-premise infrastructure, and I just say that there are 200 odd server, and let's assume that these are all servers, these square boxes. Okay, I'm just putting a lot of servers. Okay, sorry for that. And this is, so let's assume these are the top 3 boxes. These are all productions related environment. This is something called dev. This is something called staging. Okay, that is your application stack. Some of the more square boxes, the same way. Okay, I need to draw a bigger square box. Okay, and similar approach. Okay, this is dev, this is staging. This is, so let's assume that this is again prod, and these are all web tier. Let's say this tier, lower down options, these are all your application stack. Okay, these are all application stack. And let's say on my right hand side, because I don't have much room there, let's say I have got the databases, right? So this is, or maybe only one databases. This is for prod. This is for dev. This is for staging. Something like that, okay? Hypothetically. So let's say these are all these are many servers you have. There's a lot of servers, including, these are all in total 200 servers, including the databases. It is messy, right? So how can you start with this migration? Somebody said, okay, we need to go ahead with some less critical workload, definitely dev or staging. But how can you do that? Then again, somebody said that there's a migration approach, lift and shift. So lift and shift is very interesting, but is this really that easy about this migration? So you cannot just go and do a lift and shift. Even you need to follow some processes, right? Some of the steps, some of the mechanism to do the migration on Azure or AWS. So how can you do that? So let me draw another square on my right hand side, and again same big boxes. Okay. Don't know why it's not coming. This is not coming up there. Okay. If we draw, yes. Let's say on my right, it's AWS or Azure. Now, if you like to start with the dev environment here, right there, then the migration, the lift and shift, there are a couple of things, couple of tools in market to start with that. Many people, they say, okay, what I can do that, I can simply create new servers, maybe in Azure or AWS, maybe in AWS they call EC2 and Azure they call virtual machines, right? I will install my web, I will install my applications, I will install and, you know, the databases manually. Okay, it is possible. So let's say, what about the web applications you have? You can spin up or launch a fresh new virtual machines, maybe Windows or Linux, whatever. Let's say for the Java, maybe it's a Linux environment. So you may just launch a kind of Ubuntu machines or Red Hat or SUSE, whatever the operating system you have for your current infrastructure, same operating system you will launch, and then you will install the website, okay, or web layer manually. The same way, you can also launch a fresh new server, and then you will install your applications, or you will just deploy your applications manually, or you can simply take a dump of your database. Let's say your database is dev, you can simply take a backup and, you know, restore the database over there, and you can start the migrations. Okay, it is good, but not the right approach. Why? Now, again, the questions, somebody from your team should volunteer. Why do you think that this way, it is not a bulletproof way to do this migration, even for the lift and shift? Okay, somebody chat, ping me something that can record the sessions again. Yes, it is recording, right? Yeah, I can see the recording. Yeah, you can hear me, right, guys? So why do you think that this is not a right approach for this event? I mean, this manual, this is a example of lift and shift, right? Whatever I have, I am doing. But what do you think?
That this approach requires a good amount of downtime, and there may be in transition data will be there which may be lost, right?
Okay.
And a manual intervention, the thing is that definitely it's a high amount of risk if everything is that thing needs to do the manual way. And if we do it in place of with the automated some tools and those stuffs, so there will be just that hot and cold transition option will be there, so that we may not need to down the application for a high amount of time, and it will do a exact replication, and as and when the application is complete, we can do the cutover, and there is no chance that the minimal chance that we will miss something on the automated way.
True.
Yeah.
True.
Yes.
In the manual approach, probably there we may have a chance to miss dependent services.
Correct.
And probably our entire architecture may not work as it is in cloud.
Correct. So you say you're trying to mention that some human error may occur during this process. Agree. Agree. Yeah, Pushpendra?
Outage time it will be like high, and there will be chances of errors. So we can do on-prem to AWS connectivity and do some replication server, and by doing this, we can migrate the servers to the cloud.
Okay.
We need to change our strategy on that.
Yes. Yes. All of you are absolutely right. Let me again refresh whatever you mentioned, and on top of that, I will add some more points here. So This manual approach, you already mentioned, guys, that there are a lot of problems. Might be there's some kind of human error, definitely some significant downtime, which is not good, because your customer, they don't need any downtime this day. Even for the so we are talking about the development though, development infrastructure. For development infrastructure, still the downtime and all stuff is still acceptable but for if you apply the same logic for your productions, it's boom. I mean, it's not done, right? You absolutely agree. So then what would be the alternate method? Somebody said replication. So what exactly the replications are? This in the enter my question. So I can tell you now. So first of all, let me start with these databases. So here, what we have just done, that we have taken a dump of the database, and then we just copy the dump to AWS or Azure or GCP or Oracle. Then we restore from the database from that particular dump. But during this entire process, this is the OLTP, right? We already mentioned the OLTP is a real-time transaction processing database, right? Every single minute, every single seconds, here something is happening on the databases, right? It is something updates happening. It's continuous update there, right? So if you do this backup and all of the restoration process during the time, you will lose a lot of data. For dev, it's absolutely fine, because in the development database might be these not that busy databases, but for the production is big no. So definitely we should go ahead some kind of mechanism, some kind of replications process for the for the databases to sync properly between your source, which is on-premise database, and the cloud databases. What are those tools there? There are a lot of tools these days. Both for AWS and Azure, they have got their own database migration service. Okay, in AWS they call it DMS, in Azure they call it some kind of also database migration service, or in Google they also call it database migration service. So what happens that you should start some kind of migrations, the replications between this source, which is your on-premise database, and the right hand side is a cloud. And this is something kind of called CDC. CDC is continuation data check, or it's a continuation process, right? That any data will get updated or changed there. The same changes will get applied here as well. So by this approach, you will not lose any data, right? So it's kind of the replications, right? That's the DMS is the cloud native replication tool, but the database itself, they have a native replication tool. For MS SQL, they have a lot of native replication, like logstrip is there, mirroring is there. MS SQL I'm talking about. There's a mirroring is there. Now always on availability group in there from the SQL. And also if you use MySQL, there's a their own native tool replication, like the binlock and GTID based replication. PostgreSQL, they have all their own mechanism. So each and every database, they have their native tool. So it's absolutely fine that if you don't want to use some of the AWS or Azure centric tool, you can still go ahead with some of the native database tool, right? For at least my replication will be there. So any delta changes over there. So first what happened, that you can take a full dump from your databases and put it there, which is concept called a full load, and then a CDC, or continuous data check replication process through some kind of native replication. So if you go by this approach, this replication mechanism, then you are fine, right? Your database will be up to date and it's synced, because database is most critical for any organizations, right? And then you can go ahead with this web and app manually, but again, it's not a right approach, because there are a lot of issues you already mentioned, like human error, all of the dependencies somebody said rightly. So there's a tool called replications tool. In Azure, they have their own replication tool. The third-party tool in AWS, they have their own replication tool. Third-party, maybe DRS in AWS is very popular and very well accepted replication tool. Elastic Disaster Recovery Service, earlier it was name of the Cloud NDO. So by this, so how this Cloud NDO works, it is not a class or sessions, the configuration wise, it is typically a 300 level discussions, these 4 days. It's not 100 or 200. So for the configuration, if you don't know, you can check with your instructor, whatever you learned from this, you can request him that maybe some sessions on the cloud and your configurations. If I'm the instructor, probably I have some of the sessions, or if you have got your own instructor, then you can check with your instructor. But whatever the case, then you can go ahead with this migrations tool, which is a kind of replications and migrations tool, as I said, for both for your application stack and the web stack. Got it? So if you go ahead with the approach, it is a lift and shift, it is a rehost, but in a better way now. I think if somebody will ask this question, probably now you are in a better position to explain what is that, what is the migrations approach. Make sense?
Just one doubt. When we say that
Yes.
database migration tools or those means and server migration tools, correct? So those are two different entities, or it will be in a same replication tool we can replicate servers and database.
Very interesting question. Excellent question. Yeah, Pushpanda, you raised your hand. I think I will just answer Amar question and then I'll come to you. Is that okay?
Okay.
No, Amar, you rightly pointed out many customers, they ask the same question, like, can't we have the same tool for both these your web application plus databases, or I should go ahead with the different tool for different application databases? So essentially, it is good that if you use some database own way tool, like, as I said, the database, they have got their own native tool, or maybe DMS. And the cloud ND or DRS or Azure, some of the migration replication tool, you can use those tools for your web and app. But you can also use those tools, this cloud ND or DRS, for the database migration as well. Okay, but it is a kind of block level applications. Okay, block level migrations, because what happened that this database, this particular tool, let's say this cloud, maybe the cloud ND or disaster recovery, DRS, yes, elastic disaster recovery service. So this is typically a block level replication. I mean, it is recommended. I mean, I am not saying that you really cannot use the tool for databases. You can, but it is recommended. Like, you should use some of the database own way, like database native replications tool or some DMS for the databases. For application web, you can still use for this other tool. You got your answer, Amar?
It is DRS or it is ERS?
It's a DRS. Name is Elastic Disaster Recovery Service, but in AWS they call it DRS.
DRS. Okay.
Or Azure, I need to check. They have a very interesting tool as well. They have the tool for this migrations thing as well. Okay, anyways, I cannot remember, but that's fine. Ashit, somebody raised your hand. Who's that? Pushpendra? Okay, so you got yes.
Yeah, my question is that as we are replicating data from on-prem to any cloud, so if we are not using direct connect, what are the other solutions which can be used to transfer data? Is it direct through internet, or we can use some other ways to transfer data?
It is really a good question, Pushpendra. So let me show you. So I think it is really good question there. Thanks for bringing it up. For any migration, so you need to really see the workload of the source side. I mean, for any migration, it is recommended to use a good internet connectivity for these migrations happening all the time, like this replication and migrations. It requires a significant amount of bandwidth, right? So probably you can see on my left hand side there is a direct connect established. Just don't look at the MPLS. So we'll deep dive what is MPLS. So let's say you need to establish a connectivity between your on-premise. Let's say on my left is on-premise head office or something like that. Right now they are having their infrastructure, and you are migrating from here to AWS or Azure. So in Azure they call express route. In AWS they call it direct connect. So this is a kind of 1:1 link, okay, and it's a point-to-point link between your on-premise and AWS or Azure, and it will give you a very good connectivity. So the right approach is you should establish direct connect or express route for these migrations, not only for the speed, but also for the security reason, because this direct connect channel is encrypted. If you don't have such budget for that, then you still can go and use your own internet connectivity, that means customer side, and you can encrypt that internet connectivity with the VPN. That also a possibility for that. But yes, try to push express route or direct connect for initial migrations. You understand and got your question answer?
Yeah, because I know these two one, because somebody asked me the other options, so that's why I asked.
Yes, absolutely. So asking questions. So I actually was expecting, so there's a 52 registrations happened for this that particular session, but if I just compare with just calculate the percentages, that it's not that good, because I know all of the known face. Good to glad to see you once again, like but some of the unknown face, not unknown face, some of the new face I also look like to see, but here it is not there. I mean, few of them, like somebody just changed his name iPhone. I really want to see not the Apple logo, but your actual name. That's fine. Fine. I mean, it's okay. Okay. So let's move on. So that is something important, guys. Something direct connect and all stuff you mentioned. This one is one of the important area. So let's say once your development migration is done, then you will get a lot of experience. It is very important that something rightly happened as expected, something is not rightly happened what you expected. So those experience you should apply there in the actual migrations then. Okay, because this is very important. Okay, iPhone is Harsha. Okay, Harsha, yeah, no problem. So for each and every migration, I can tell you every time it is new. If somebody says, okay, I've done the migrations for Mr. X, the same knowledge I will apply for Mr. Y. It's not really. Maybe they're using the same tools, the same process of migration, but the experience will be different because you don't know Mr. X applications behavior and Mr. Y applications behavior. Every time it's new. Okay, so but the high level concept of the migration will remain same. So once you are done this development migration, then the next questions, then you think that you can start with the production, because by that time all of the areas and so you have got the experience about this development workload. You have already migrated to AWS or Azure, but now do you think that you can straight start with the productions migrations now? If yes, then say yes. If no, then say no, and then explain why no and why yes. Okay.
Experience.
Yes,
I have not experienced done this, but I have been asked in interviews what they look for in the answer they expect is mainly the planning, how you're approaching to start the migration. There are and it depends on the category of migration. I mean, if the server is having a database, or whether the server is same category, so this analysis is a big task, and that is a planning in, even that is documented also, so far I have came to know.
No, I understand you are coming from where, Shotudha, but yes, so I where do you have more points to? Okay, you're done, right? So yeah, absolutely right that that is something. But before I'll answer your query, quickly I just touch base that if you say that your development migration is done, it is even not right time for start with the productions, because As I said, the production is very critical, and you need to do a lot of calculations about the cutoff time. Somebody explained that you need to do a proper migration plan. Okay, right? Like, once the migration is done, then there's a lot of other services, right? Let's say people are still accessing your real applications, but there's a DNS needs to be reroute to the AWS or Azure. There's a proper cutover time that when the migration will start and when the migration will finish, and then from when the end user or customer will hit to the AWS or Azure. So those plan is really required, and it is a kind of collaborative effort with your customer leadership team, with their operations team, with their technical project manager, and you as a cloud engineer, consultant, or architect, right? So from the technical perspective, as I said, that even you cannot start the productions migration because there will be a phase-wise migrations event. Because in the productions, maybe they are using 50 servers, then you need to see what are the dependency of these 50 servers each other, right? It is not your only responsibility for these migrations. It is a joint responsibility for both customer and yours, right? It's very, very important, because you don't know like how the application ecosystem works and what are the all dependency, what are the all servers are communicating in which way. You understand my point? So maybe some of the servers, some of the application module is running to another service dependency, then this service will running on another server. Who knows, right? So again, getting a high level architecture from customer is always recommended. That before migration, just ask customer, hey, Mr. Customer, do you have your application high level architecture to understand exactly the dependency, which servers are communicating to which server, which module, and etc. Because and always start with the kind of this dependency way. Let's say one application's module is dependent to another server, so just identify those particular 2-3 servers and then migrate those servers once in a time, or parallelly or simultaneously. And then you have to identify another modules, or another different modules maybe with the same applications, and and then you have to migrate those different 4 or 5 servers in one shot or parallelly. That would be the smooth migrations approach. As I said, it's not magic. You can start the migrations across all of the servers through this Cloud ND or through this Elastic Disaster Recovery Service, all of the Azure migrations tool. But ultimately, it will have a lot of problem, right? If somebody will ask during the event interview that, okay, what is the approach, then probably you should explain this way, because each and every application, they have their own life, own way of life, right? So this is very important, guys. You understand, right? So this is because I came across a lot of experience in my career from the migrations. Even the lift and shift, the rehost looks very fantastic, very easy. It is compared to other, but there are so many dependency you need to really work on, together with your customer team, your all of the database team, all stuff.
Is it recommended to run our architecture in dry run, or if it is, then what is the period or how it will be assessed?
Yes, Amar. It is as I said, a collaborative approach. So likely or unlikely, your customer definitely need this. It's kind of each and every migration, you have to define a proper strategy. Let's say let's say you have developed the migration high level architecture, then yes, you need to explain the customer team that that's your thought process, the idea about the migration. Maybe they have some objections, some of their own recommendation. Absolutely fine. You have to listen to them and apply their knowledge, thought process. Or if you think that, okay, your thought process is better than them, then make them understand. So to cut it short, that yes, I mean, you need to run them through a dry run about this architecture and your plan for the migration. And there are a lot of complexity these days, right? Migration is getting very, very complicated. Even you will not get this rehost or this lift and shift everywhere, right? You will get a lot of re-architecture. Probably you have heard this term these days, modernization. So I'm doing a lot of modernization these days, but the modernization is really one of the very challenging migrations way. We'll also discuss what is the modernization. It is something like it's completely re-architect your applications, and maybe from the legacy applications to containerization. So they call it the modernization, but not now. It's very early discussion, but that is the generic migrations discussion, that if you are the Azure, AWS, or Oracle guy, or GCP guy, now pretty much it's same across all of the CSPs, and you need to explain this. Now I think you understand, right, what is this migrations high level approach would be for the rehosting. Okay, all right. Any questions? Any don't I think.
Yes, one more question. Means this is may not be related or important as of now, but it just came to my mind when we say that we have this all the database application web servers, correct, and there will be an let's say API interface which connects to different services, right? So how do we take care? Means when there are APIs which has been defined in on-premises, and how we can check, or what is the approach we should take for same APIs to be defined in cloud, so that all the necessary, first of all, communication, and then necessary successful running of application can happen.
Yes. So for any migration, there's a, to answer your query, the first thing that the testing is another very important area, right? The testing. So there will be functional testing and also the technical testing. So let's say they are having their own API. Let's say they have written some API in the REST API with their own RESTful API, their own code. So what you can do, that since we are talking about the lift and shift discussions, right? Lift and shift, then there's a no different services or modernization will come into picture, because in AWS and Azure they have got their own API gateway, this kind of managed services, right? You can go ahead with this particular service, but this is not additional service we are talking about. So let's say they have deployed their API in one of the servers. Okay, API is a API. So API, in most of the organization, if they have the API, they usually have the API servers. So your responsibility as a cloud guy, you need to just migrate their APIs server. But in case the API is not working, or some of the dependency, that's not your call. That is something their application team call. So let's say in one of this machine here in the productions machine, let's say these are the API servers, right? So all of the APIs are hitting this server, and then it's routing to different servers maybe. So your job, how can you migrate this API server from here to there through this Cloud NDO or whatever the tool, and then this API will work or not work, then something their application team to test internally, and they should fix that, because you are not the application guy, right? So, and if you are the application guy, or let's say your company is dealing with both this infrastructure as well as applications modernization, then probably that's your call, that you can sit with their application team and fix that. But ultimately, in your scope, whenever you write the scope of work, right, SOW and all stuff, then it's not your scope, this their scope. You got, Amar?
Yes, but in means I have come across a situation that means we have a API server even in staging also, or in development also, because there are different blocks, correct, of development, and there are different blocks of let's say another services, correct, which provides as a feed to one of the applications, correct, and then we need to basically, you can say those are inference APIs kind of things, and we need to expose the inference API, and one is to send the inference API request to get that feed. So from that point of view, I'm just asking that then APIs should also be the part of our I understand your point that it is not in our control or in architecture point of view if it is, but if it is there, then I guess we should also be considering to shift or have the API services migrated towards cloud, even if for staging or the for the other development environment?
Yeah, absolutely. So whatever you have on the development, as I said, you need to migrate and on the phase-wise manner, right? So it's not only API, as I said, is if some kind of services they are running, if they are using some, let's say, even they are using microservices, let's say some of their own way, like if they're using some kind of streaming services, right, or microservices, or maybe some middleware. So of all of them, you have to migrate. So as I said, that if it's a servers-based architecture, then it doesn't matter that they are using API or they are using some middleware or some of the, let's say, different services. So it is actually running on the server-based architecture, because in on-premise there's no concept of serverless, right? Everything is running on server. So your job to migrate that entire services along with the servers, and this cloud endure everything, they have the capability to migrate the entire binaries along with that particular whatever you have in that particular server. So once this migration is happened, let's say API you rightly mentioned, or maybe some of the third-party services or the middleware, maybe let's say Apache, some of the Apache services running, right? Then once this migration is over, then it's a kind of scope you have to define who is taking care of if things are working or not working, or subject to testing. Understand? So the entire stack you have to migrate. For the simplicity sake, I just showed you only the development, web, and productions, but only the web application and database. But yes, there might be a lot of integration. As I said, that you need to understand, if you just go up, you need to understand the third-party integrations, or as much as detail you need to capture during your initial requirement gathering session.
Right. Got it.
Yes. Perfect. Fantastic. So very interesting discussions, guys. We have some time, so let's take a quick 2 to 3 minutes break maybe, and this session will last for another 30 minutes. Okay, and we'll try to cover some of the other interesting area maybe quickly, this related to migrations use case today. Okay, we'll back after 3 minutes, maybe 6:08 or 6:09. Thank you. I can see somebody just joined. I don't know who is he or she. The name is Xiaomi M20 something. So it's already, you are 1 hour late. So we started 5 o'clock. The recording is happening, and probably you can refer to this recording. Who is this? May I know that who is the Xiaomi something? You can change your name probably.
Hello? Hello?
Hello. Yes, who is this?
Yeah, this is Pratik. So, Dada, good afternoon.
Hey, Pratik.
Good
How are
evening.
you? So, Pratik,
I'm
you late? I mean, you late, of course, is supposed to.
yeah,
No
just got
worries.
occupied somewhere. I was in official meeting. That's why.
Okay. No problem, Pratik. So, it's getting recorded. So we started an hour back, 5 o'clock. But what I'll do that I will share the recording with the again main group and
Sure,
probably.
sir.
So another thing, okay, 6-9, I think now we can start. So guys, one more thing that today is what 12th November. So we'll connect again next Saturday. So this time will be little different. I understand that all we are busy, you busy. So the time, of course, it would be on weekend. But whether the Saturday or Sunday, it's a bit difficult to say, because in Saturday sometime I have also some work at office, right? You understand, or you also have. So it's kind of mutual. So I'll let you know that which time probably we'll meet again next weekend. Next weekend definitely will meet on the same use case discussions. But whether Saturday or Sunday, it is little difficult. But the time would remain same, 5 o'clock in India Standard Time. All right, so let's start, guys. So we are back probably. So are you? I think 6:10. So now we have just discussed very high level these discussions about the lift and shift. Some of the excellent questions I got and tried to answer those questions, and some of your thought process also you described. Another questions, another use case. Let's say now I have got a customer, and I have a kind of applications running on premise, which is a legacy applications. What is legacy? Legacy application is pretty old application stack, okay, and it is very old, and now it's not fully cloud ready. So recently I spoke to a customer. I cannot take their name, of course, for the NDA reason, and they are having applications running, or they developed in themselves, and this application is running on the developed by the PHP, and backend it is running on Postgres or MySQL, PostgreSQL, yeah, PostgreSQL, and it's running PHP. But when I discussed with the customer, they are saying they are having a 16 servers, okay, on premise. They are running this server on some control-less data center. Okay, there's some different data center. You heard the name control-less, also a big colo data center. So they are running. There's a 50 to 20 to 30 servers also running for this application. So I asked 20, 30 why. So they answered that these 20, 30 servers, because for different districts, they are the government clients. They have got a different districts. For different districts, they are having different servers, sort of, right? And sometimes they have said that the same district load, they have split into two to three servers separately. And these 2 to 3 servers, or maybe total 20 to 30 servers, they are all physical servers, right? And that's it. So then I said that, why would you like to go ahead with the cloud? Is there any logic? They said that, okay, we need to leverage all of the cloud beautiness, like, all of the high availability, all of the performance, all of the scalability and all stuff. Then they answer very strange questions when we get into all of the deep dive about whatever the architecture, right? As I said, that you need to understand. So I'm from the database specialist team there, and also solutions architect, and I was with my cloud engineering team as well during the discussions. So something like that. So I'll ask these questions, try to answer. So their current application is legacy applications. Why legacy application? Because they are not cloud ready. Why not cloud ready? What do you think is a cloud not ready? It is some kind of very kind of confusing, right? Why do you mean by not cloud ready? Anybody can volunteer that any application, when you can say this is not a cloud ready application, or it's a legacy application, it cannot run properly on cloud. Nobody, right? Okay, anybody?
Maybe the development way, or like it's not fully supported with the latest versions of cloud infrastructure.
One way of it came. You are partially right, but your answer is correct. Okay. Anybody apart from Prem? So Prem mentioned that some of the developers, it's not maybe the version compatibility issue or something, right? A version. It is right. So yes, so this legacy application are not cloud-ready applications. It can be for different reasons. One is definitely the old stack. Let's say somebody, their infrastructure, their applications running very old PHP or Java or maybe .NET, or they are running their infrastructure running on 2003, for an example, on a Windows Server operating system, which is obsoleted, right? It's end of life. Or maybe they are using a very old Linux distributions, which is not, available, the versions in cloud, right? But another interesting thing that they mentioned, that their application is not supported for the load balancing feature. Is very critical, right? Because all we know that one of the important pointers for any cloud, Azure, AWS, or any other, the load balancer, that the load balancer under there's auto scaling, right? So whenever the load will come, automatically the servers will scale out and also scale in, right? That is the advantage of cloud. But their application is not supported load balancer. Why so? Because their response was, the application was the stateful applications. What do you mean by stateful? Anybody knows that? The application is not supported. I think Shobhan, probably you were there. You also worked with this customer. You shouldn't say their name, right? Probably you know which customer we are talking about. But this is a very interesting customer use case that I think that we can discuss here. I think.
Yes, so it's a very common question in AWS. So stateful or stateless are the scenarios in which incoming access is allowed, and implicitly outgoing sending message is also allowed. That is stateless.
So sorry for interruptions. You are absolutely right, but I need to do a little interruption here, because this is application level stateful and stateless. It's not about the network level stateful or stateless. Your answer is explanation is absolutely right. But yes, the application is stateful means all of the sessions of the application are actually holding in the application level, not at the database level. So what happened that, let's something like that, very interesting. You should know, let's say this is the applications, right? And let's the user. And when the user is connecting to the particular applications, so their session is actually being maintained by the application server itself. Now, let's say there's too many users are coming up there. So they're in the same servers, right? So what happened? All of the sessions are getting launched into that particular server, right? But now you need to expand the server. Okay, there's a high load, or maybe let's say this server is down also, or something like that. Then what will happen? All of the session will get terminated and they will see 404 error, and server, your website is not available, or something bad, right? This is a perfect example of the stateful, because all of the states are being managed or handled by the application server itself. But modern applications, the way modern application works, all of the sessions actually are being maintained by this server database. So sessions are being managed by the databases, which is a concept called stateless. So irrespective of the, let's say this server is down or something like that, but still the session is being managed by the database. So if the additional server will come up, let's say app, so their session, that data, this particular user session will not get terminated, because their session is maintained and managed by databases. And that is something called a scalability. Very, very important. And this is a very basic thing you should know as a cloud consultant or engineer or architect. So that is something of very maximum legacy applications. They use their application stack to manage these sessions. But now modern applications, all of the session is being managed by databases. It can be the OLTP databases, it can be the NoSQL or SQL databases, it can be DynamoDB or Cosmos DB in Azure. So whatever the databases you are using, but your session should be managed by databases, and then it would support the Elastic Load Balancer or Azure Load Balancer. If it is a stateful, then you cannot scale up because that's a dependency. If you do this way, then you can do a scale up, all of this. So that is something now your application now has become the cloud ready. And then in that case, you need to do a POC for that, whether these sessions right now is being managed by application, or now it will manage by database, something the application side from the customer side, they need to do that. Once this is done, then you can migrate to AWS or Azure or GCP, right? That is something called one of the example of legacy applications. There might be a lot of reasons that somebody mentioned that maybe Prem or somebody mentioned that there might be a versioning issue, old, as I said, that's also part of it. Yeah, Prem.
Yeah, that's right. But I mean, with respect to the application session stateful, whatever you mentioned, still without the load balancer can't be achieved with a single or maybe couple of servers. I mean, how currently on-prem
yes,
they are maintaining.
Yes.
Can we have the similar setup actually in the cloud?
Very good question. Excellent question. So what they are doing that, let's forget about they don't know cloud, right? But still they are managing their application in the same fashion, forget about this stateless, right? But how they are still managing, right? So what they're doing that they have got a very huge, big servers, okay? And they keep on upgrading the server as a vertical expansion. So let's say the more load will come, they will keep on upgrading the server, or their server is very, very heavy. Let's say they have got a 64 physical core, or let's say they have a 512 RAM. But this many of resources, they are not using all of the time in the entire year. So this load is only coming maybe 3 months, but the entire day they are spending for 64, but which is not required, right? So they are spending a lot of money. So what if they would run in the cloud, like they can start with the bare minimum, let's say 12 virtual CPU, maybe 120 or 64 GB RAM for an example, and then essentially whenever as and when the load will come, then they will have the additional servers as a pay-as-you-go model, right? They could save a lot of money. That's the whole objective they are coming to. They would like to try to AWS or Azure for this. Because without load balancer you cannot achieve this, right? So that's their main problem statement. Okay. Okay, so you understand what so now customers say, no, I don't have any bandwidth for this. So all of the stateful, stateless, it sounds very interesting and it's kind of very jazzy, but sometimes what happened that they have their own limitations in terms of time. They don't have much bandwidth in terms of human workloads and to do that. But still, they need to do a migration right away. So what do you think that what would be your approach then? They would like to migrate in the same way, even the legacy applications, if you would like to run on AWS or Azure. Okay, nobody. Okay, in that case, what you have to do, you have to say, okay, what you can do that whatever you have, you just do the re-hosting approach, the lift and shift. So absolutely, if you have the 64, these huge mammoth RAM servers, you can just go ahead with that, with AWS or Azure. And then slowly, you need to do a modernization inside the cloud itself. So let's say whatever they have migrated here. The typical way they are doing the same kind of thing, but slowly they can modernize this entire thing. They can re-architect their application in this cloud, and their application team, maybe they will deploy some of the development stack, and they do all of the experiment for this to make it stateless and all stuff. Then that's what you can do. So for during the interview, or if somebody will ask that, then what do you think for the legacy applications migration on Azure AWS, then you should say that there are two choices. Then they can do actually before moving to cloud. They do all of the experiment before moving to cloud on their on-premise. They do a lot of changes and all. Then once they're ready, then they can actually migrate the ready product to cloud, or whatever they have, they will migrate first to cloud, and then they do all of these changes, and then once ready, then they can just discard their whole concept there. Okay, so this is very interesting. Yes, sometime the roadblock is there. Let's say some of the operating system you cannot get in the cloud. It's very old operating system, or some of the database versions, it's already obsolete and you cannot get in the cloud. Then you have no choice, right? Then what would be your choice? the only choice left, then you should say, tell customer or advise customer, hey, Mr. Customer, since those version is completely obsoleted, it's end of life in cloud. So you should do all these changes first, whatever you are running right now. Once it's ready, then we can help you out for these migrations from here to there. Make sense? All right, so what you have learned, okay, Prem again, or Satya or somebody just unmute. I can see a lot of people, folks. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Actually, if let's suppose we are having older version of database on-prem, there is one option that we can migrate to the cloud as well, but we can convert that database into the latest version, or we can go with the latest technology. No need to do on-prem upgrade or things.
See,
That can be conversion.
I will take your answer, but see, we are all talking about very realistic world. I mean, options are there, but still at the end of the day, you need to do a proper testing, right? During the version upgrade, we don't know whether the version upgrade of your database, your application will completely break. Because sometimes what happens that your application will not support the latest version of your databases, right? You may upgrade with lot of tool, even the DMS in AWS, you can upgrade, right, from one version to another. But once this application is done, then before that you need to do a lot of testing, that whether the application level you need to change something for the compatibility purpose, right? So as I said, that it's your call. How can you give it a shape, right? You upgrade first and then you just do a proper testing in application level. So, but be mindful that whatever you are doing with lot of technologies tools these days, but you need to stick to the old experience. You have to apply your old experience. The testing is very, very important. You got your answer? Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, there is an option, but still the compatibility we need to check.
There are a lot of options. Yeah, there are a lot of options. Even you can see in AWS, there's an app to container. We are talking about. We are working. I personally working on with my team. So app to container, what will do that it will immediately transfer your entire app to the container. Okay. But it sounds really interesting, but there are a lot of work you need to do even for this app to container approach, right? So tools are there, but as I said, that proper testing is very important.
Yeah, right. Even we are having that schema conversion as well to do those kind of stuff.
SCT, yes.
Just one more doubt in the reference to what you have explained. So once even if we are in cloud, okay, or with the legacy application, right, and there is a situation may arise that whatever the architecture we have, whether it's a server or whether it's a development platform, PHP, Java, or anything else, or database version, which is not supported by cloud, is that situation will arise, and then what should be our approach to mitigate that?
I'm sorry, Amar, can you please repeat once again, because something the internet was not, it was very cracky here.
I'm saying let's say with the legacy application which we migrated to, as you said, with the legacy application we can use the same configuration and shift to cloud and then and then to Mac. But there is a chance that the supported server version or the supported database version or web application server, it may run out of support, correct? If that situation arises, or if at all that situation will arise, or if that arises, then what should be our approach to?
So I answered this question already. So see, if that particular thing arises, that this particular operating system is not end of the life, right, or there's no support, or the version is not available, or very soon it will be discarded, or it will obsolete, then only the way is customer, you have to tell a customer, advise customer that you need to upgrade at your on-premise first, whatever the infrastructure is running, and then once it's done, then you need to migrate the end product. Okay, otherwise you cannot. So there are two parts of it. One is legacy applications. You can straight migrate to cloud and then do all of these changes. But in case it's absolutely not possible, just you mentioned there's a versioning is not there, or maybe the operating system is not there, database is not there, or all other dependency, then they have to changes these things first at their on-premise before actual migrations. And then once they are done, let's say they have now changes the version to the upgraded version, right? Then once it's done, then they can migrate to cloud.
Or once we migrate the cloud, will that situation arise?
I mean, once the migration is done. So now again, problem, everything falls all the time, right? It's a very, very well, it's very excellent quote from Werner Burgers from AWS. So if things are running in AWS, on cloud, on premise, sometimes things are not working or will not work even any Azure or AWS. But it depends about the proper, it's subject to proper testing, right? If you apply, if you follow the right, prerequisites, if you follow the right prerequisite, all of the versioning properly, then if the things are running on premise, the things should run on cloud absolutely better way, right?
Okay.
Okay. So 6:29, I think I made these sessions useful for you guys. So we have to hard stop 6:30. So again, I'll tell you advance that when the next session will be. Next weekends, Saturday, Sunday, and just need your help, support. Like, I'm just trying to spend my time here, so also you are spending your valuable time. So let's make a use of it. I will come also today. I think there's a 8 o'clock. There's a DevOps sessions conducted by Puneet. Puneet is also a very experienced DevOps guy. He's our instructor here also. You can try to join his sessions also. But we'll try to bring these sessions now very frequently. I will engage myself for this at least 1.5 hours every weekend, and try to help you out, guys. Okay, you find this is helpful, people? I mean, it is good, this discussion, or how is it, or how can I make it better?
Yeah, definitely, it's a great help, brother.
Okay, fantastic.
It is definitely.
All right. So so tomorrow, next day we'll bring more of the interesting session. How can you do a performance improvement and high availability and disaster recovery? And we'll actually discuss a lot of serverless topic and some of the microservices these days, because that's the way world is moving towards. So how can you leverage cloud, serverless, or some of the modern applications design at a scalable manner? That's something we'll discuss in our next discussions. Thank you so much. Have a nice day. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.